Hi.
Go to the container storage.
Hi.
Appreciate it.
Hi.
Let's head home at the east elevator.
Clock's ticking. Ark isn't waiting around, and neither am I.
Let's go to the Galleria.
Hi.
I can understand. Everything that you did, except the night for me.
Head home at the Western Station.
Don't shoot!
I'm not much for praise, but you're proving reliable. Great work.
I know.
Any luck with those? Thanks for gathering.
Our food production. Great. My lead points to a group of researchers that Even Ben Welder can only do so much with beans and potatoes. You know what I mean?
Hi. Hi.
Raider, yes? I see. According to the files you found in the lab, so it all circles back to the...
That it is at room temperature, and we're just going to crumble it with the flour. And once we have crumbled our butter, we're going to add hot water, and just make sure you add it slowly. And we're just going to add enough hot water to hydrate the flour. Okay, and after I added 2 cups of water, my masa is all sticky. So now we're just going to knead it for 5 minutes. Our tortillas. At this point, you want to make take it to that and just allow it to move it from the heel of our tortilla. Clean New Mexico or in it. Cooked all of our tortillas. Now we can get back to our beans. Okay, at this point our beans are done, so we're just going to open it. And to that we're going to be adding 3 clean New Mexico or Guajillo chile pods. And just give it a couple minutes. Okay, and after a couple minutes, we're going to transfer our chile pods to our blender cup. We're also going to transfer 1 cup of beans and 2 cups of the broth. Okay, along with that, we're also going to add 1 garlic clove, 1/4 of a teaspoon of oregano, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground cumin. I'm also adding a little bit of salt, but that will depend on how much salt you
So Asha Sharma, CEO of Xbox, just made a social media post saying that she saw a behind closed doors gameplay demo preview, whatever you want to call it, of The Elder Scrolls 6, that it looks great, blah, blah, blah. A bunch of you guys reached out asking me to talk about it, and so I figured I would. Even though I'm currently adventuring in the magical land of Scotland, I had to find a park, and I'm hiding behind a bush, and I'm doing my best. We're going to talk about it, even while I realize I may look homeless right now, but you know, it's worth it. Now, the most obvious thing to bring up, of course, is that Asha is not what we call an unbiased source with this. I don't know of any executive that would say their product is not coming together or isn't that fun or is technologically behind the curve. Nobody's going to say that. Every executive is going to say the game is the best thing it's ever been and it looks amazing. It's going to be groundbreaking and amazing and phenomenal. In fact, you can go back and find statements from Phil Spencer saying as much about Starfield, and we know that at the very least was not a unanimously praised, you know, critically acclaimed thing. It was much more mixed. Now, having said that, I do think obviously she did see a demo of it, and this seems to be the new standard for Asha, is that she is sick and tired of waiting years and years and years and years for any updates. She is pretty clearly like putting mandates down. You need to get to work. We got to get this going. And that's just what it's going to be. So at the outset, I don't think it's reasonable to conclude that this is going to be like a masterpiece because Asha said so. Asha has every incentive to say it's amazing no matter what. And if you believe that it's going to be amazing purely based on the statements of the CEO that's put hundreds of millions of dollars behind it, I don't really know what to do to help you. You know, I have some real estate on the moon to sell you, I guess. But it turns out we actually did get some information as part of this posting that we can actually work with, that we can actually like infer some info from as to what Elder Scrolls 6 is actually going to be. Some internet sleuths have been hard at work and they have figured out some crazy stuff, and I want to talk about it. Specifically, it looks like they have actually solved what the title of the game is going to be and figured out where it's going to be set, because it looks like Bethesda actually hinted at it back in 2023 during a Starfield Direct. I know that's crazy, but just buckle up. So with all that said, let's get into it. But first, a thank you to our sponsor, HDMI. Yes, that HDMI. HDMI technology powers smoother gaming with all sorts of cutting-edge technologies that make your experience as a gamer better. I'm sure we've all heard of it, but to understand exactly what's going on, HDMI technology specifically empowers all sorts of features that you benefit from as a gamer. Uses it to get free game free, which is without sponsoring this video. Okay, so the first thing to note is that in Asha Sharma's tweet, she put out a number of asterisks. She said that she saw a gameplay demo of The Elder Scrolls 6, asterisk, asterisk, and then did that for a very specific number of times, which could have been random, could have been intentional, but it was interesting that then further social media posts made by other people also had the same number of asterisks. Could have just copy and pasted her post, or it could be coordinated. Make up your mind as you will, but the point is people saw that there's a certain number of asterisks listed, and then they use that to assume the number of like characters in the subtitle of the game. And the reason why it's important to know the subtitle of The Elder Scrolls 6 is because typically when Bethesda does a subtitle, it gives you a pretty good indication of what like the either subject matter of the game is going to be, or in the case of like Skyrim, where it's going to be set. So then people took the fact that there were 8 characters allegedly in the subtitle of the game, and then they took that and started to look back through old leaks or other pieces of information that could indicate what the subtitle is based on 8 total characters and no spaces, because it looks like it's just one word. Before long, a user by the name of Starfield November posted to the Elder Scrolls 6 subreddit, and it was just simply a post of something shown in the Starfield Direct from 2023. And in that post, it's just a string of numbers, 16 numbers to be exact, and those 16 numbers are supposed to be like the employee ID number, effectively. Like it's expected that it's just randomly generated, and that's what a lot of people thought. But I remember back in 2023, in the lead up to Starfield, the fandom was crazy hyped and trying to figure out every little Easter egg they could in the game. And they found that if you took each of those numbers, if you broke up the 16 digits into 2-digit chunks, and then you corresponded those numbers with a letter in the alphabet, out of all the letters, and then you like tally it up and spell it out, it ends up spelling out Sentinel. And at the time, back in 2023, it was thought that this was a hint as to like the bad guys in Starfield, or the faction, the name of the bad guy faction, or something like that. It wasn't thought that it was a hint at anything else. But you'll notice Sentinel is 8 letters long. And people are looking at it going, oh, that could work. What if that was a hint for the subtitle of The Elder Scrolls 6? I'm gonna be honest, this one I don't blame people for like not realizing it was Elder Scrolls related. It's in a Starfield Direct. I think it's fair to assume that that would be for Starfield, you know? So I don't feel bad for people missing that, because it does, I mean, it lines up. And the term Sentinel is not one to be disregarded quickly. I mean, you could say maybe it was referring to something in Starfield, because there were plenty of things labeled Sentinel in Starfield. But where it stops seeming like a coincidence is with a former developer. You see, there was a writer on the Elder Scrolls series for a long time named Michael Kirkbride, and he actually is still active on Reddit. I'm surprised they haven't like given him the swat on the wrist, because he like talks about Elder Scrolls pretty frequently. And he specifically said in response to somebody saying Sentinel as an answer to the question, what is the subtitle of Elder Scrolls 6 going to be? He simply replied, yep, okay, well, to me, it seems like that might confirm it. You know, one of the writers, one of the people that knows what the subtitle is, at least what it was a few years ago, he says, yeah, that's the subtitle. And that would align with the Starfield leak, Easter egg, whatever you want to call it. Seems like Sentinel is the subtitle. And then you add on to it a bunch of other little bitty things, like for example, in one of the Starfield trailers, there's like a scratch on the windowsill. And if you look close, it looks like a map that roughly corresponds with the area we'll be talking about in a second in the continent. So like it lines up and it makes sense. But there's a lot of reasons to think so. It's just that these 2 reasons are probably the biggest ones. But okay, let's say that the title is actually The Elder Scrolls 6 Sentinel. What does that actually tell us? What can we do with that information? Or is it just like an exercise in futility? Well, there actually are a few things we can take from that. I also just realized that I am literally touching grass as we go through this. Kind of beautifully poetic when you think about it, really. I mean, I should do this more often. I feel grounded. I feel less irrational. This is crazy. I have the urge to close Twitter off my phone. What is happening? Well, to just read you a little bit from the wiki, Sentinel is one of the 9 major kingdoms of the province of Hammerfell, which has long been rumored to be the location and like hub for the Elder Scrolls 6. There's many reasons for this. There's leaks, there's rumors and speculation, but also like just anecdotally, if we look at like individual instances, the Elder Scrolls Online has gone to countless areas of like the Elder Scrolls available map effectively. And the one area that they have not really touched and have steered clear of is like the overwhelming majority of Hammerfell. Like they just don't mess with it. It's a pretty big area on the map. It's pretty like diverse in terms of biomes, with like a lot of rolling hills and ocean and like coastal areas and deserts and stuff. It seems like a place you would expect them to go, and they have just not touched it. And I'm guessing that's because they've known for a decade that that's where the next mainline game is going to be set, so it makes sense, but there's that. It's the capital of both the Alakir Desert region and the Murkwasa region of the Alakir. I'm going to apologize for the mispronunciations. I'm American. What did you expect? I mean, this is what you get. Dude, speaking of, I had somebody in the elevator, thick Scottish accent, loved it. It was awesome. And she like was asking me where I'm from and everything as we're like riding down to get breakfast in the hotel. And she said that she loved my accent. What? I have never in my life had somebody say they like my accent. It was weird. It was weird. Do Scottish people like American accents? What is happening? I'd never in my life experienced that. I think of Americans liking British accents or liking Scottish accents or this or that. I've never in my life heard of a Scot liking an American accent. It was weird. I didn't know what to do with it. I just kind of went, I had nothing to say. Anyway, continuing on. It is also considered to be the guardian of the Iliac Bay and has been the safe haven of the Western world through the eras. Sentinel has been the modern capital of Hammerfell ever since the Interregnum and the Tiber War. It is also the capital of the Forebears, one of Hammerfell's political factions. Sentinel itself is located in the northern peninsula of the kingdom overlooking the Iliac Bay. The city is rather large and well fortified from the east, and the Sentinel Bazaar is located on the lower end of Sentinel, underneath the bridge dividing the north and south end. The Sentinelese Bazaar is one of the largest markets on this side of the Iliac, going across the Sentinel Canal and eventually the Sentinel outskirts. East of the Bazaar leads into the eastern harbor of the Sentinel called the Wayfarer's Wharf. There are ruins of ancient Sentinel underneath the modern city, which is where the Sentinel Outlaws Refuge is located. North Sentinel expands from the western harbor to the Forge. The Sentinel Square is located on the northern end of the bridge and houses the Sisters of the Sands Inn. South Sentinel is the home of nobility as well as Semaruik, the Palace of Sentinel built by Grandi Yagub during the Ragada invasion. Again, I'm just going to apologize for the mispronunciations. I'm doing my best. And if you're interested, I recommend that you read through these like lore pages because it's been mentioned in like previous Elder Scrolls games and literature and books and stuff. There's plenty to learn about it, and you can even start to kind of piece together what it's going to look like as you play through it. But there are some key takeaways. Number one is that Sentinel is massive. It is a huge city, and it's also very vibrant. It's like, it's a big undertaking, and I'm going to be honest, given the limitations of the creation engine as we understand it, which I think for most people is the biggest like question mark with this game, I'm worried. I'm going to be honest, because historically, the way Bethesda does cities is with little bitty like micro districts, which are effectively each of the little sandboxes that you can go and explore. And so even with like Neon, which is supposed to be this epic, huge sort of cyberpunk city, in the concept art, it's big, epic, and vast. It looks very Night City-esque. And then in the final game, it is minuscule. In fact, we actually did a video, probably at this point a couple of years ago, where I downloaded a bunch of mods for Starfield to see if I could fix the game or make it significantly better with the help of modders. And what I found was that it didn't really help that much, but there were mods that were entirely designed around making Starfield closer to the concept art and like removing a lot of the technological restrictions. So like Neon originally had 100, 200 foot ceilings. They ended up getting rid of that for Neon, and it ended up like really claustrophobic because they brought all the ceilings down. It just was kind of frustrating. And that's what I'm thinking of. When I look at like the descriptions of Sentinel and the descriptions of what the map would need to be like, the whole time I'm like, bro, if this is one of those things where it's like, the Grand Bazaar, and it's 4 shops divided by 3 load screens, I'm gonna crash out. I'm just being real. Like it's really hard to feel like you're embarking on an epic, vast adventure when it is so far behind the curve technologically. It's just frustrating. But there is potentially like light at the other end of the tunnel. We do know that Todd and all of those guys are very aware that this is probably the biggest question mark for a lot of fans, and that a lot of their audience is worried about the technological limitations. And so they know what they have to do. Like they understand the mandate. I think the setting sounds interesting. I think they have a lot of potential. Seeing that there's a lot of like waterways, that there's potentially canals, there's a big harbor, there's a lot of shipments that go in and out. They have the opportunity to do things like ships and like shipping, where you could actually have a ship of your own and sail it up and down the coast, delivering goods or just to get to different objectives. That would be really freaking cool, especially if they brought the like ship customization tech from Starfield, which I still insist is phenomenal. And they brought that over to like customize the inside of your ship. That could be super cool. That could be super cool. With the big city, they have the potential for like a living, breathing, dynamic city. Think of what like Warhorse did with Gutenberg, for example, where they had 1,400 NPCs in that city alone, simulated with daily routines and activities, walking to and from work, heading to bed. Like it could feel so alive and so amazing and cool. But that's the tricky thing. Is like Gutenberg in KCD2 is significantly smaller than what Sentinel is supposed to be. And I cannot imagine BGS of 2026 making even Gutenberg, with that level of dynamism and free flow exploration and interactivity. And I just hope I'm wrong. You know, I hope I'm wrong. I read through this stuff and I get excited by it, as I'm sure many of you do. You clicked on this video after all. But people ask me all the time, they're like, Luke, why do you talk about BGS so much if you very rarely have nice things to say? And I always say, like, it's because I'm a fan, dumbass. Like, I want them to make amazing games, and I want them to be at, like, the cutting edge technologically. I want them to show everybody how it's done, because they used to do that. Like that high we used to feel, and that I felt when I played like Skyrim for the first time, and it's just this sense of awe and wonder and free flow exploration. Same with like Fallout 3, Oblivion. Like, these are amazing games. And then Fallout 4, solid, but a very different kind of game. And then like we just hit Fallout 76, and we hit frickin' Starfield and everything else they've done with the mobile games. It lost the magic for me. You know, I feel like it became more about building a product than an experience. And you can start to feel that in games like Starfield and Fallout 76, where it becomes more about paid mods, it becomes more about creations, it becomes more about the in-game store spending atoms on this and that. And I just hope that Elder Scrolls 6 is not that. I really hope that this is like a return to form, and it's Todd going, I still got it. I really, really hope that's what it is. And I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping that Sentinel ends up blowing me away, and it's this incredibly vast and epic city, and they have the ship stuff that's awesome. I really hope that's what it is. But you know what? Time will tell. We do know that they understand the mandate, they understand the assignment. They are overhauling the creation engine again. So previously, when they were describing Starfield, they said that the creation engine 2 was going to power the Elder Scrolls 6. That's what they said, like, exactly. And after a lot of the feedback around Starfield, they realized that that might not be a selling point. So they pivoted, and now they are framing it as Creation Engine 3 will power Elder Scrolls 6, which I don't think magically fixes it. It's the same engine, just you put a new number in front of it or next to it. But you know, time will tell. Hopefully it just means that they are doing some major overhauls to fix things like the data streaming, to fix things like the load screens, or at least make them less frequent. And I think that's what we're left with, is that they know what they have to do to make ES6 work in a way that like answers the critics. And it's just up to them as to whether or not they can do it. You know, at this point, the ball is in their court. Is that the saying? I don't watch basketball. The ball is in their hands, and they just have to deliver on it. They just have to execute on it well. Really, it's up to them. They have incredible amounts of hype, attention, and interest. They just have to give their fans what their fans expect, which I think is a modern, cutting-edge, open-world adventure game with Bethesda levels of open-world exploration, adventuring, and world building. And that's what they're really good at, or at least they were really good at it 15 years ago. I hope they still are, but time will tell. And you know what? If they come out and they swing for the fences and they kill it, I will be so happy, and I will celebrate that, and I will praise them, and I will light so many Todd Howard candles, and we'll start making new songs about how Todd answered his promises and kept them. We'll do all of that. Or they'll screw it up. Time will tell. But let me know what you think of all of this in the comment section below. I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts on all of it. I think it's very likely that they are going to name it Sentinel, and that it's going to be set in Hammerfell. I think it's going to be set around the big city. And it's going to be fascinating to see how that works, because setting a game in a massive big city sounds like a great way to reveal a lot of your technological limitations if there's a lot of load screens and stuff. But who knows? Who knows? We know that from Starfield, they didn't think it was that big of a deal. And they may still not think it's that big of a deal. But it's going to be fascinating, because this probably launches pretty close to The Witcher 4, The Witcher 5, Larian's game Divinity. It launches right around all of those big fantasy open world adventure games. It's going to be really, really fascinating to see which one is considered kind of the king of them all. But time will tell. Thank you for watching, guys. Thanks for chilling with me as I hide behind a bush in Scotland. I am traveling for a reason that's pretty fun. I will share that with you soon enough. But until next time, my friends, much love, hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.
Some of the biggest video game franchises were down and out